Okay. So, I want you to think of some of the most well-known brands. Nike, New York Times, L'Oreal Paris. Now think of their taglines. Just do it. All the news that's fit to print. Because you're worth it. You see, those taglines, they serve as an external message. They tell you what the brand is about. And internally, they give direction and focus. Now I want you to think about yourself. What's your brand? What's your tagline? Really, who are you? You see, I always knew that I wanted to be a journalist, and more specifically, a network news producer. While I was in college, I wanted an internship in network news more than I wanted to go out with the sports guy from our college news station, which was saying a lot. Fortunately, I landed an internship at a morning television show in New York City, and I spent the summer from my sophomore to junior year of college immersed in the world of news. I fell in love. I fell in love with the intensity, I fell in love with the drama, and I fell in love with the creativity that came with news. And that's when I decided I wanted to be Cara Lemieux, network news producer. So a few months after college, I harassed the relevant parties, not enough to get a restraining order, but just enough so that they would hire me. And I was asked to come in and freelance on a project commemorating the death of Elvis Presley. Once that project wrapped up, I was offered and accepted an opportunity. I was offered and accepted a position running scripts for the show, which meant I showed up to work at 11 o'clock at night and finished work at 10 o'clock in the morning. And I made many, many, many copies of the show's scripts and rundowns and handed them to everyone and anyone who needed them, which included some of the most well-known journalists of our time. Somewhere in there, I clearly remember handing scripts to the gentleman in the control room who handled all of the visual elements for the show. And I was in awe of his ability to keep all those balls in the air. And I was also captivated by the adrenaline rush that came with a job like that. And that's when I decided, I refined my intended brand a bit and decided I wanted to be Cara Lemieux, control room producer. And about 6 years later, I landed myself in that job. It was intense. It was really, really intense. I went to work at 3:30 in the morning and communicated quick changes from the show's anchors and producers to the graphics and video teams. I'm not sure if you've ever been in a control room before, but I got yelled at a lot, and I yelled back a lot. There were days I hated it and days I loved it. But most days, when I pulled up to that studio in Times Square and saw that bright news ticker, I just felt so damn lucky. Those of us on the inside of news know what an honor and a privilege it is to have such a front row seat to history. Even the most jaded in the newsroom will admit that. And I also knew that there were a million women and men who would die for my job. So while I was having a great time being oh so self and career obsessed, 2 days before my 30th birthday, I was packing to get ready to go on a vacation with my best friend. And I wasn't feeling so great. So for the obvious reasons, I took a pregnancy test to put my mind at ease. I put the test back down in the bathroom sink, went back to packing my flip-flops and my bathing suits, and when I came back in and saw that test, I saw a very, very distinguishable plus sign. And in that moment, my life changed forever. Me, fairly accomplished, pretty intelligent, well-educated me, got pregnant without planning to, with someone who I did not plan to have a baby with, and who did not plan to have a baby with me. Enter a true identity crisis. I was single and pregnant. Cara Lemieux, failure. Cara Lemieux, idiot. Cara Lemieux, single mom. You see, this life development made me totally doubt everything I thought I knew about myself. It's not like single mothers are painted in a great light in the media which I'm a part of. We've all seen the headlines. Finally, city to tackle unwed mom epidemic. Or, are single mothers to blame for son's poor grades? Our readers weigh in. I'm not going to sugarcoat this. I hated myself. And not so much for what was happening to my life, although that was part of it, but more importantly, for what was going to happen to my daughter's life. I clearly remember being about 4 months pregnant and playing through the scenarios where she would hear headlines like this about single mothers and children raised by them, and I broke down. I didn't want the bar of expectation to be lowered because mom wasn't married. I didn't want her to be embarrassed by her family structure, and I didn't want her to be embarrassed by me. As my pregnant belly became more and more obvious, there was no shortage of commentary from people around me. Comments ranging from, no one's ever going to want to hire a single mom, to, how can someone so smart be so dumb, to, why don't you just go back home and live with your parents? And the reality is, there is nothing anyone said about me that I didn't think about myself. In my mind, becoming a single mom erased everything I had done up to that point. On the outside, I did the best that I could to pretend like I was going to be 100% okay, because I knew if I didn't, the whole deck of really precariously placed cards would come crumbling down, and with it, health insurance and an income, and the small amount of self-respect I had left. I was buoyed by my rock star support system comprised of my amazing family and my incredible friends. They deserve a speech all to themselves. But none of them could erase the self-image problem that I had. Now that I was becoming a single mother, I had no idea who I was or what my brand was. Once my daughter was born, I just went into survival mode. And it wasn't pretty, but it all got done. The breastfeeding, the burping, the changing, the round-the-clock feedings, the shushing, the bouncing, the 104 fevers, the ear infections, everything that came with being a single mom, or a mom, my daughter and I made it through. But it was rough. And by rough, I mean I considered success not melting into the puddle of tears that were forming on the living room floor most nights. But I knew that there were so many women doing so much more with so much less. And I also knew that failure simply wasn't an option. So I did the best I could with what I had, and day by day, things did get a tiny bit easier. But this shame of being a single mother still loomed somewhere in the background of many of the things I did. Anytime I'd meet someone new, I'd get this weird feeling in my throat when I would say the word single mom. And I was just depressed. Right around the time I was in the funkiest part of my funk, my best friend came to visit from Los Angeles, and we were sitting on my couch in my living room eating takeout Chinese. And she looked up at me and said, seemingly out of nowhere, "So when are you going to stop punishing yourself?" I broke down. She had hit a nerve. I cried a lot in the weeks that followed. A lot. I cried a lot in the weeks that followed. And I've said since then that rock bottom is not a place that you hit and bounce back up from immediately. Rock bottom is a place you spend some time rolling around for a while. And for me, it was the place between acknowledging I needed to change something inside myself and actually doing it. Yes, the juggle was incredibly difficult, and it still is. Yes, I have read all of the statistics and data about single mothers and children raised by them. Yes, I always needed 2 sets of hands when I always only had one. I lived in constant fear of getting the stomach bug, and I didn't have time to shower some days. But none of that was what was weighing me down. What was weighing me down was that I was letting my most difficult moment negatively define me, internally and externally. And after a lot of soul searching, really, I have done enough soul searching in the past 4 years to last me a lifetime. But after a lot of soul searching, it hit me. Becoming a single mom did not erase all the accomplishments I had up to that point. succeeding as a single mom added to them. And that is what I would want my daughter to know once she was old enough to process all of this. And after meeting and talking to other single moms, I realized the reflection of us in the media isn't necessarily accurate. We love our kids just like married moms. We have the work-life internal debate just like married moms. We show up for our kids and we're doing the best we can just like married moms. And I came to the conclusion that, in my humble opinion, based on the single moms I know, myself included, the single mom needs rebranding. And I also realized that the only way to make that happen externally was if it was taking place first internally. I had to believe I was not my most difficult moment. I was how I responded to the consequences of it. And if I didn't want others to let my parental status define me, then I couldn't let it define me. Cara Lemieux, single mom, journalist, producer, and work in progress. I'm now smart enough to know that we all are. So if you're ever sitting there thinking you are your biggest challenge and you're held back by it, pause, maybe do some soul searching. And remember, you are not your most difficult moment. You are how you respond to the consequences of it. And in there lies the opportunity to change the internal messaging and to rebrand yourself. And I truly think that is an idea worth spreading. Thank you.